Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you've been feeling lately like the ground is just constantly shifting beneath your feet, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating topic: how to actually find clear direction in a world that is changing so rapidly it makes your head spin. We're going to break down those unseen forces that make us all feel so overwhelmed and, more importantly, map out exactly how you can take control back. Let's jump right in.
So think about this for a second. In a world moving faster than ever before, why on earth do so many of us feel like we're constantly falling behind? It's a total paradox, right? I mean, we've got all these time-saving technologies, instant connectivity, and yet we feel like we're completely running out of time. The truth is, in this fast-changing world, almost everyone is silently carrying around this incredibly heavy load of uncertainty, fear, and honestly, a real loss of hope. If you've been feeling a sense of dread about the future lately, trust me, you are not alone. And today, we're going to expose exactly why that's happening.
To really understand that fear, we have to take a hard look at the visible challenges of our era. We are quite literally living in the age of more. We've got more information right at our fingertips, more artificial intelligence, more career options, more ways to connect than any humans in history. But what's the actual result of all that? Well, this huge abundance has just triggered more uncertainty, more loneliness, way more toxic comparison, and a truly staggering amount of anxiety. We aren't empowered by the more, we're completely overwhelmed by it.
And that brings us to the core realization, the absolute biggest takeaway of this entire explainer. The next decade is not going to have an intelligence crisis, it's going to have a decision crisis. Think about it. We don't lack data anymore. We lack direction. When you're paralyzed by just having endless options, combined with that intense fear of making the wrong choice in such a shifting landscape, that's when you enter a decision crisis. And the really scary part? When a society completely forgets how to make confident decisions, the unavoidable result is a widespread crisis of meaning.
Let's actually break this down and see how it hits specific groups, starting with the invisible fears carried by Generation Z. So, ages 16 to 30. On the surface, this is the most connected, digitally fluent generation that has ever existed. But right underneath that, they are dealing with some seriously heavy, secret questions. Things like, who am I? What if AI just replaces me entirely? Why am I so unhappy when I'm supposed to have all these opportunities? They're essentially being forced to map out their entire identities on totally unstable ground.
But hey, it is absolutely not just the younger crowd. Take a look at the older cohort, often feeling kind of like a lost generation right now, between the ages of 30 and 55. You'd think reaching that age would bring some stability, right? But instead, they're asking, man, is it too late for me? Or why am I technically successful, but I don't feel fulfilled at all? The fascinating takeaway here is that massive contrast. Despite being in totally different life stages, both of these groups share the exact same profound anxiety about the choices they're making and what their future looks like.
So, the big question, how do we actually survive and thrive in all this? Well, we have to pivot away from obsessing over the visible challenges and start focusing on the invisible opportunities. Here's your new rule of thumb. Ability minus dependability equals liability. Look, the whole narrative that AI is just going to replace all humans, it's false. But humans who refuse to adapt to this new reality, they will absolutely struggle. If you're highly capable but you lack dependability, you lack that human grounding and character, you actually become a liability in the modern workforce.
Which brings us right to what we call the new human currency. Notice what is entirely absent from this list. You don't see IQ up there. You don't see raw information retention. Why? Because those are just commodities now. A machine can do that. In the post-AI era, the traits that matter far, far more are trust, judgment, character, relationships, and consistency. These are deeply human qualities. No algorithm can replicate them. Cultivating these specific traits is your invisible opportunity to rise completely above the noise.
When we step back and look at the whole digital landscape, where AI tools and technology are just constantly shape-shifting every single week, it is so easy to feel lost. But the enduring path forward, it's built on you. It is not just about keeping up with AI. All the signs point toward leaning into clarity, decisions, adaptability, purpose, and impact. The technological landscape is going to constantly shift. That's a given. But your human foundation, that remains your absolute greatest asset.
Ultimately, all of this boils down to a pretty stark choice between two completely different paths in life. On one side, you've got accidental you. This is a life lived purely in reaction, just kind of drifting along with whatever circumstances pop up, which almost always leads to stagnant growth and, eventually, regret. It's leaving your future entirely to chance. But on the other side is future you. This path is highly intentional. It's aligned with a real purpose, and it represents continuous growth. The reality is incredibly simple. You don't just find your future, you create it.
Now, the actual mechanics of that transformation are surprisingly straightforward. You're basically stepping away from a current self that's burdened by unclear direction and reactive choices, and you're moving boldly toward a future self that is defined by crystal clear direction and realized potential. The absolute bedrock of this transition is understanding that every single decision you make today creates the exact person you become tomorrow. This journey isn't magic, It is paved entirely with deliberate, intentional decisions.
So how do we actually build a practical framework around this? We already know today's reality involves insane amounts of rapid change and skill gaps that just lead to missed potential. While future you isn't just some nice conceptual idea, it is the necessary bridge. It spans that massive, intimidating gap between exactly where you are standing today and where you want to be tomorrow. It's an active, ongoing process designed to help you discover your true direction and build future-ready skills, even when the rest of the world feels completely chaotic.
And honestly, this is about way more than just an individual mindset shift. It's about building a vital human ecosystem. This whole movement is about empowering youth, professionals, and whole families with the skills and opportunities to lead and innovate. It's actively designed to positively influence homes and communities that are facing all these post-AI uncertainties. It provides the exact right support so people can discover their potential today, decide tomorrow, and truly thrive forever.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one simple, undeniable truth. Every life is the result of decisions. That's it. If you are tired of carrying around the uncertainty, the fear, and that awful loss of hope we talked about earlier, it is time to stop leaving your life to chance. Take control today. I strongly, strongly urge you to take action right now. Contact the person who shared this message with you to learn how you can step onto the path of your future you. Because before you go, you really need to ask yourself one final question. If you don't intentionally decide who you will become tomorrow, who or what is going to decide for you? Thank you so much for joining me.